All right, we're live.
Great. Welcome. It is Thursday, February 20th. This is the House Energy and Digital Infrastructure Committee, and we are here today with Legislative Council to walk through I believe, the second draft of DR 250896 draft 1.3.
Yes.
Yeah, draft 1.3. So we'll just introduce ourselves and then ask folks in the room to introduce themselves, and then we'll turn it over. Yeah, Jack, can you print a couple copies? I'd like one. You know what, I would too.
I'd like one too. Just a print out.
Print out a batch of.
Well, I have 1.2 in front of me, so.
We're on 1.3.
Oh, I would like 1.3. Sorry.
All right, Jack, can you print a bunch of copies of 1.3? All right, I am Representative Kathleen James from the Bennington 4 district.
Scott Campbell, St. Johnsbury, Ethics.
Richard Bailey, Memorial 2.
Chris Morrow, Inman, Windsor Bank, and Michael Southworth, Caledonia, too.
Christopher Howland, Rutland Ford.
Here, Torrey, Washington 2.
Graham Klempner, Burlington.
Laura Sibilia, Wyndham 2.
Jack Locker, Committee Assistant.
All right, and
Lisa Dobbin, GFO IT consultant.
Evan Kern, intern within the Craftsman Group, 3L student at Vermont Law School.
great,
Peter Dior, Deputy Chair.
great. All righty, for the record,
Rick Sagal, Office of Legislative Counsel. Good to see you all again. It's draft 1.3. This will happen from time to time. I'll be working on something at the last second and I'll have an updated draft. I'll share my screen as well, but hopefully you have hard copies here you can look at. I will give a little bit of a kind of bring up to speed or maybe refresh your recollection on what we talked about. Was it last week, Madam Chair? The first walk through the bill?
could be.
The days are flying by for me.
I think probably so.
Next week's going to be maybe just as interesting as this week. So just to give you frame of reference, we're looking at the statute that, well, the part of the statutes where ADS was created, the responsibilities, the roles of ADS are provided. But specifically so far, what this committee is wanting to do is potentially change some of the reporting that ADS does on an annual and maybe even sometimes dynamic basis as regards to their projects. So I may kind of go through what was in the old language as well, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
That's helpful.
So firstly, discussing the annual report and budget that the Secretary of ADS provides. This is already in statute, but there was a discussion about adding, and this is old language, this is not, let me rephrase that. This is language that I showed you last time. This has not changed, but just as a refresher.
Rick, did you say though, as we go through things for us to flag? I think that you had mentioned it might be important for us to define business goals, or did we decide we were gonna?
I brought it up.
Yeah.
I don't think the committee had a clear indication, but something we can talk about now if you want to go over. My point was ADS might think you know what you mean when you say business goals.
Yeah.
It never hurts to be more prescriptive when you can be. And we can even say have met their business goals, which shall be, you know, you can be a little bit more clear on what those are.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also last time what was mentioned was the goals aren't really listed elsewhere in this report. So maybe creating a new reporting requirement that has them actually list their goals.
Yep.
Would be something to consider if you.
Did we? I can't remember if we took testimony on whether business goals is something that ADS has succinctly defined, or whether we think it varies by project. I'm guessing the latter.
Yeah.
But I'm going to flag that for something to get feedback from Lisa on, unless Lisa, do you have thoughts right now?
Well, I know they usually have goals overall for the agency in their strategic plan, which they do publish. That's part of that. And then within the ABS form itself, they have the business case, which is the things they're going to accomplish. And usually embedded in there are business goals, but they're not explicitly out there as business goals,
And
which
that,
could be helpful.
and do those vary from project to project?
Yes.
So for UI modernization, it's X, Y, and Z. For DCF, it's A, B, and C.
Correct.
So do you have a thought on how we might try to come to shared?
I think the actual goals are usually embedded within the project charter that's created by the project management standard. So I think if we just ask them to share the document that includes the business goals, that might be the least intrusive way to do it.
Or could it be something as simple as business goals as defined by the
Yeah.
Relevant
project charter?
Yes,
Is that the right wording?
I believe it is.
Okay. Rick, as defined by the relevant project charter.
Yes, and I'm going to text somebody, have them.
Phone friend. Okay.
on that.
I can kind of, as we go, I can kind of mark it up so you can see how it might look. Do you like that, or you want me to just take notes on my physical piece of paper?
Is it helpful for folks to see, as long as we can see what Rick is adding, is it helpful for folks to see it happening as we go? Great. Whatever's easiest for you, Rick, honestly. Yeah.
That works for me, but I would also say if we make changes, I prefer to see the changes highlighted.
Yeah, that was my assumption.
Yeah, so I know the only changes that have been made in this draft are the last two major subsections. It's just giant paragraphs. Nothing else has been changed until I think the last pages, page 4. I do that too. Whenever there's a small change, but the last 3 pages are the new language.
Yeah. But you mean, Rick Sibilia, for us to be able to see, as Rick is typing in there, that it doesn't just disappear, that new language is somehow highlighted.
I'm fine with him doing it here.
Okay.
Yeah, or highlighting it, but just my practice is in the past with drafting bills. When changes, it's my preference. When the council brings us changes, edits to a bill, which we'll see happen a lot.
Yeah.
That they highlight those just so that we can see that.
And I usually do that.
Except it's the.
Right. The
Yeah.
half was gonna be yellow. Like it's always gonna be yellow. So yeah, I want you all to be aware of what I changed as well.
Okay, so as defined, yeah.
Yeah,
Pursuant, whatever is the correct language, the relevant project charter. We'll come back to that if that's not quite the, right?
now this may not make them provide. And this might be at least a question. Do they provide that? Is that charter public information? Is that like a?
It's usually not posted publicly.
Okay.
Sometimes it is, but I think that's not because there's anything confidential in it. It's just because there really hasn't been an interest.
Okay, we've become the interested parties.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
So I'll massage some of this, but this is kind of placeholder so you can kind of see the direction that
Okay,
maybe you want to go. Anything else for that subdivision 1?
I don't think so, folks. As we're walking through, committee members, make sure you're raising questions, raising comments. As we go through drafts, the language gets more and more finalized until we suddenly reach a point where we feel like we have it final. And then at that point, we start talking about, who supports, who doesn't support. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, this is your chance to really, this is one of several chances you'll have to really read this language, see what you think, weigh in and ask questions.
Maybe I'll make a comment then,
Yeah,
which I wasn't going to make, but now I will. I wonder if a clearer way of saying that relevant project charter might be to say, have met each project's stated business goal. Something like that. It just seems simpler and clearer to me, but I just throw it out there.
okay. Rick, could you put that, can you put like or
Mhm.
or something? What was your suggestion?
let's see.
Oh, each project stated
Have met
business
each
goals.
project's stated business goal.
That's stated with an S,
Stated. No,
something like that.
Yeah,
See what you mean?
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking relevant project charters, that's probably, well, let's see, where's the relevant project charter?
right.
It just seems a little
Okay,
more abstruse to me, but
alrighty.
there's another way.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Representative Southworth.
So would that fit in with multi-year projects?
Lisa?
I don't understand the context of the question.
So we're stating, business goals.
Mhm.
If it's a multi-year project, will some of those goals will not have been met at all, correct?
Usually, that's right. Usually they're met by the time the project is executed.
So is it set up so that certain timeframes within that project are gonna have their own set of goals?
No, it's not set up that way for the business project goals. It's usually at the end of the project. And depending on the project, some will be more explicit than not, like, you might want to save X amount of dollars on printing. That might be a project goal.
Right, so if we're looking at this as an annual report, Madam Chair, are
We are.
those going to fit in? Because the project isn't done, I guess is what I'm saying, it's still in process.
Perhaps you're thinking of milestones, maybe something that you're about.
Yeah, yearly milestones or something along that lines as far as the project, because
Yeah.
the goals are based on the end result, not
Right.
the functioning throughout that project.
Yeah.
Should it be? So we've got, okay, let's see, we've got baseline and annual measurements. The extent to which the projects of this subsection are meeting. Not have met.
I don't know, I'm just struggling with the annual, but if it's a multi-year project, we're not gonna be meeting those annual.
Right. Are, so I'm wondering if like our meeting or I'm just gonna toss out non-legal words, are keeping pace with, are on track to meet,
Yeah, maybe.
because I get what you're saying.
Yeah, meet the project stated milestone and each project's milestones and stated project goals.
Our meeting seems important to me.
Yeah,
Our
our
meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Rick, you got the gist?
Yeah, that you want to, yeah, I understand that you want to ensure that these long projects, they're not going to have their goals met because they're not done yet, presumably. But you want an update on if they are meeting.
We're gradually on track.
But are there
On track,
milestones?
yeah.
Are there actual, does ADS provide milestones or do they have milestones?
Well, within the project plan, I would consider that a project milestone where they have dates of, what, and, deadline dates for different parts of the project that are broken up. But you might be getting really far into the weeds on what's meaningful to you at that point.
I'd be okay with something like are on track to meet.
That's what I have.
Okay,
Something for me, given this stuff here.
Yeah,
We are getting into the weeds.
we are,
No, not that.
I feel like that's our vibe.
So if you want to see this real quick.
Wait, Rep Southworth. Good.
yeah, I mean, that is. Verbiage is, it's not, it's very subjective, I guess. Is the way to put it. And if we're looking for, X, Y, and Z, then having that subject in this there is kind of counteracted what we're wanting to see. I don't know what the correct verbiage would be.
Do you
Well,
want, oh, sorry.
ADS, I'm sure we'll have an opinion.
Yeah.
So they'll be back in.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, skip down to subdivision 4, which was just referenced by subdivision 1. an outline summary of information, including scope. This committee is suggesting we remove schedule from scheduled budget and put in original and current estimated data completion, original and current estimated budget, and the rest of the language does not change. And this is the same language as last time.
Are folks feeling like that's,
I think we should be. It's not just the original and the current, it's like how, each time the date or the cash allocated to the project has changed, that should be a line item, I think, so that we actually see over time, think how things have changed. It's the way if I'm reading this correctly, then it's, you see the beginning and you see where we're at now, but you don't see
Middle.
the middle.
Mhm.
So
here's a question I have. Is that concern covered later in the bit later, like on pages 4, 5, and 6?
So yeah, that would be currently it's in the proposed language. We'll put that in the dashboard, the middle, as you say, the different levels of completion changes or amount of money changes. But I understand his point that in the annual report, maybe you also want a table showing the various changes in completion or budget. In addition to the dashboard, having that information, you could put it here as well.
That actually brings me back to a question I have. The statement of purpose for the bill remains focused on a publicly available dashboard. And I thought we had talked a little bit about, does it matter to us that it's that dashboard updated, or do we just care that we see the information in a snapshot? I'm just wondering if we're locking in a format.
Right.
We talked about what's easy now, what's easy later. We talked about maybe some of this is in the annual report and some of it's.
yeah, this
In the
is just
dashboard?
the annual report we're talking about now, right? Yeah, so I don't think we need that level of detail. I would retract my,
You retract?
well, we do need to see it in the dashboard or in some of the reporting. But the annual report maybe that might be overkill for that. I don't know what.
I'm feeling the opposite.
Yeah,
We need
I
to
feel-
see it in the annual report, but not the dashboard.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
feeling that way also. So when Deputy Auditor Act was here, he mentioned somebody asked about the other agencies that do something like this, and we mentioned Agency of Transportation and their way of reporting to the legislature. And they provide a big, thick book with all the projects and really the status of each one through time. And that seems like a really,
Yeah, that's a good model.
look at that, here we go. right now.
Ah,
Just mentioning your name, Mr. A.
you summoned.
Yeah,
I was,
Would have been here on time, but Bobby Starr they have a little gathering for.
Oh,
Bobby
that's
Starr
right.
Downstairs,
Uh-huh.
sorry.
So,
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
as long
I
as
think,
we
I think
get
the
that
place,
picture.
the place for detail, and I agree with you about having maybe a line that shows different changes in the contract or something like that. That would be useful, but that kind of detail belongs in the annual report and not in the dashboard, it seems to me.
and Rep Morrow correctly pointed out that the section of the bill we're talking about right now is the annual report,
That's right.
which I had lost track of. So we're talking about this in the right place. So never mind, I dragged us down the wrong road. So this is the place and the time to talk about that. So, right, because all the new language is about the dashboard.
Yes, which that language can be transposed to this section
Report.
if you want it to be. I guess my understanding, maybe it was misunderstanding, was that you wanted the website dashboard to be the kind of dynamic place where they update the completion dates and the budget amounts of money. But if that's not the case, we can easily move that language here and have that But we do need, maybe let Kay.
Let's keep going. Yeah, and
Okay.
come back to this, because I was looking over at Lisa, because I may be totally misremembering, but let's keep going.
Is this the annual report?
It's,
Yes.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's an annual.
Yeah, what are we?
That's what we're.
Well,
We were
we're talking about that.
No,
but
ADS.
ADS also has an annual report.
Oh, no, I think that's it.
I just want to make sure.
They have their own separate annual report.
They do, which is,
I think it's in there.
Well, I ended up finding it somehow.
it's, okay, well, they have also an annual report,
Yeah.
which is different from this EPMO, the
Okay.
EPMO report.
Okay.
Here we go. Right.
Yeah,
You'll notice how.
so I think
It's very dog haired, I guess I've read it the whole thing.
maybe we should, as I think Rick suggested, maybe we should go through first in more of a messier way and figure out if there are places where we really want to make sure that we're correctly describing what we want to see. And then maybe we circle back around to, and we want to see this there and this there. Does that sound like a workable approach?
One part of it that is a sort of a tech question that I don't know the answer to is, can we have the dashboard have hyperlinks to each of the project pages or project reports that appear in the annual report? That's if we can do that, then the dashboard can have much less detail, which would make it more useful, I think.
So keep in mind, the report is annual, and if you put it in the report, this information, they would only have to update it once a year. And I think that the point of the dashboard was to have, if something happens in May or June,
Yeah.
then that dashboard gets updated.
Well, yes, we also talked with this Secretary Ronnie Hughes about using, maybe in lieu of the actual report format, some format of how they keep track of their projects internally that would then be public facing. And then have that be what it's linked to, not necessarily exactly as you get to the report. So that's a question for secretary or somebody who would know, oh yeah, we can put a hyperlink there, no problem. Or not.
Guessing or not.
Yeah, it's judging on the testimony the other day. It's like
Sounds like,
adding a field.
yeah,
I remember Lisa saying something about cloning that
yes.
on the website to get the report you're looking for.
I'm not sure if they can do that or not, but that's how I would approach it. She mentioned there was some limitations on their tool, their use of the tool.
And we talked about whether
Yeah,
that just, I think we talked about whether that the existing dashboard could just remain their thing that they use for project management. And we get, I was almost envisioning honestly like an Excel, kind of low, low tech. Okay, so Rick, would this be the place to try to get in a succinct phrase, and we can move it around if we want to, that talks about Representative Morrow's flag that we want to see if the dates and budget are continually shifting.
Well, so I think
We're gonna get to that.
Let me just kind
Great.
of jump down there,
Okay.
and
Okay.
kind of show you what this, Lisa helped with this language quite a bit. And
What's good?
this is on page 4, subsection E. This is the next few pages are all new language from the last draft.
Okay.
So, imagine, in my head, I had this imagined as a web form, kind of like they have now, a dashboard that is probably not interactive, but it's like a static dashboard that can occasionally be updated. But it can also be a spreadsheet. It can also be a low tech thing that AES submits every month, however often you want them to do that. So the agency shall maintain a project dashboard on its publicly accessible website that provides status of all current information technology projects with a total estimated cost of $500,000 or greater. The dashboard shall include the name of the agency and department that each project is directed towards. And I had a little bit of trouble with that language at the end, how to phrase that, the project is it directed towards, is it
It's really the owner.
the client entity, I think
Yeah.
maybe to borrow deputy auditor's language. Okay. But I think I can work on that. But basically that you show which agency or department is having this IT project done on its behalf. 2, name of each project. 3, the actual start date, including the planning or initiation phase of each project. The original estimated start date of the execution phase of each project. The original estimated date of completion of each project. The original estimated cost of each project. The actual start date of the execution phase of each project. The current estimated date of completion, including a timestamp of when this date was last revised. And if this date is different from the original estimated date, subdivision 5, an explanation of why the date has changed. And a 9 similar, the current estimated cost, including a timestamp of when this amount was last revised, and it's different than the original cost that they estimated, an explanation of why the amount has changed. And the final 2 columns would be the difference between the original date and the current date of completion, and the original cost and current cost of completion, shown in a percentage format. So it's 20% over, 20% under. That would be, again, this is written as it would be on a website, but it could be done in a low tech fashion as well.
Okay, and you can do that with dates too, I guess you can. Yeah, Rep. Studio.
Back on page 4, line 10, I have a question. Line 8, excuse me, the current projects dashboard. Could that be interpreted to mean projects that are current?
So I have session law at the very end, because I thought about that too. I have session law that basically says, as far as what is current, when this dashboard gets live, when it gets posted, how you define what current is. Otherwise, it's kind of open to what is currently ongoing. And I guess that's open to interpretation. So I'd be curious what you think would make that more clear.
I'm sure.
Yeah, Rep. Selford.
With the word active instead of current.
Or it's closer, I think, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Lisa.
I saw it defined as when you choose to have them submit one, right? So if you choose to have it submitted quarterly, it would be as of June 30th, September 30th. I didn't know if you wanted to lock in any dates on that.
We should
Because it would be defined on the frequency that they provide, right? It would be current as of that.
So
I'm worried about current as in on time
on their timeline.
as opposed to working on it.
Yeah.
I active is closer, but
I think active's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rep. Selford.
The only problem with that is if it ends or closes during that annual period, it would be active at that point, so we wouldn't be able to see that. Correct.
This is no longer the part of the annual report, though. This is now an ongoing
Okay.
dashboard that would be dynamically updated, presumably. Yeah. And it's one thing about the active, I'm thinking, what if it's a project that's not completed, but has gone into inactive stage? And they're not on their own volition. They decide to call a project inactive.
how about active and inactive projects? I mean, they're not completed,
Right.
or we could say not
Ongoing?
uncompleted.
Rep. Howland.
Could they go from inactive to cancel?
Yeah.
So some stays on the inactive list until it's either canceled or brought back in and completed.
I think we have a suggestion. Project status dashboard.
But if that's part of the dashboard, if you include the status, is it active or inactive?
Oh, I see. So we could call it active projects, no, we could call it current projects dashboard and then make sure that they include a status. And then we can always put in parentheses, I don't know, active, inactive, completed.
You can say that this dashboard shall include active, inactive, canceled, all projects that are not complete. Like I can add language to this
Yeah.
paragraph that says, you know, this is what we mean by current. It means this, and you'll see the next subsection is completed projects. So there is a clear distinction between complete and incomplete. I
Okay,
think that's maybe how you phrase it.
that's good. Okay,
Madam
where
Chair,
were we? Yes,
so revisiting my topic of the missing middle. So we have number of originals, and then we have currents, 8 through 9, whatnot. Then you have the phrase in the middle, including a timestamp of when this date was last revised.
mhm.
So that gets current, the last one, no, original, the last one, then current. But if there's multiples, that is not in there. Like, a lot of these projects go over many years. You have multiple changes in dates and budgets. And I don't think that's addressed here. It looks
How
like
about-
that would be the place to put it.
Including a timestamp for each project revision or something like that.
I think maybe the word is
Yeah,
history. Yeah, the word maybe is history, a history of all
Okay,
previous.
Yeah, something like that would be,
Completion dates, yeah,
and
and
budgets.
an explanation for why it shifted.
brief explanation. Yeah,
So again, that feels to me like it's far more detail than ought to be on the dashboard. This is information ought to be linked to the dashboard. And I can't believe it's that hard to do that.
well, especially not if the decision is, there's your project management dashboard. Put it somewhere else or link it farther down and we want to see this. And it honestly is something as simple as an Excel. I don't know.
Yeah, or, just really all of them.
Well, the reports, are they still gonna be doing these, what are those called?
Yes.
Yeah, this is,
That
This
should
is
be
what-
in there. I mean, on the dashboard, I don't know how useful the dashboard is.
this
If
is
we
how
have
they've
access-
interpreted the statute for the previous section we talked about.
Mhm.
That's what they're reporting on. And it does include schedule, but I think
We had the history and explanation in this, and we had access to that
Yes,
on a regular basis.
yes.
That would be more functional than,
if you look back.
It would be more functional and also more overwhelming. I do like the thought of some sort of cover sheet or
right. that's-
summary or
Go through.
something, because that's, it's a
Gotta
It's a
see
good
the way the
read,
tag-
actually. I mean, I
tag,
I
uh,
think it's an
the
interesting
company
report, but
This is inside the end. They only
Were you
have-
trying to weigh in like there?
yeah,
Yeah, I did a mock-up of the dashboard or Excel sheet, just in Excel,
yeah,
to understand how the data would look. And you do have to be careful because you could be getting into more dimensions if you're asking for timestamps
Mhm.
and all of that. And, because it would be hard to know when they updated it and when they didn't, and for you to really understand the history, which is why I think you're suggesting we add it to the annual report.
right.
But I find that what I've discovered just by doing the mock-up is looking at the data longitudinally is really important. Because you could see things that, a project might look green in the annual report, but then you look at the prior year and realize it went up $20 million. So, and it's still green. So looking at it longitudinally is really important. So being able to jump from this to where that change occurred would be very helpful within the annual report.
Within the annual report.
But this, the mock-up does show it over time, and with the percentage increase, it's pretty remarkable what you see when you can look at it like.
Okay. And I'm
this-
sorry, just before I see Rep. Suffer, do we need to be clear that we are talking about this annual report and not the other annual report, or do we leave that?
This is nested inside the,
Great.
okay, so
Okay.
the way that the way that they're following the statute is number 4 on page 2. And so we're in this new language, we're proposing that this budget section get fleshed out more with original and current.
Okay.
And that's,
And history.
yeah, so we might want to just look at what exists now and look back at number 4 and the proposed changes to make sure, like, we want to take schedule out. See, schedule is currently reported on.
Mhm.
I don't know, just, I thought it might be worth it to actually look at what it looks like right now. Check.
And then look at Lisa's mock-up, maybe.
Just know the data might be wrong. I did a lot of data entry.
Oh, I'm sure,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I guess we would need to be careful about that, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, where's that for?
Question for Ms. Goffin, is that all right?
Yeah.
So all of this that we're talking about would be, any amendment or, ongoing negotiation for an amendment would be included in that information or not?
If you do it in the annual report and you ask, I would ask for the total amount of change orders or, the total change
Okay.
increase over that last year. Because the detail could be really overwhelming.
Yeah, because that's kind of important because that happens a lot
It can.
and that can increase costs a lot.
So I would ask for the total amount, total increase in the contract over the last year.
Okay.
For the cost.
This is in the annual, correct?
Yeah.
Online for that. Or specific, okay.
I'm a little worried that that it's a rabbit hole for designing their report that they should design. We want to be telling them that we want more information, but
Yeah,
we might be getting into too much detail.
I think,
I kind of agree with that.
I think it's important to remember that, we can go ahead and develop a wish list here now and then get ADS in. It's gonna be very important that they come back, and I have forwarded this to Secretary Riley Hughes and just said, we're just still talking about this, but so I think it'll be really important to get their feedback on, this is what we want to see. How much is overwhelming, what do you guys think belongs where, and get their perspective as well. Yeah, it's not like we're gonna mark this up and then vote it out today and take it to the floor. Like, this, we need to, hearing from ADS, once we've marked this up, will be our next important step.
And maybe we ought to be looking for a way to give them more general guidance and make this, put it in statute that it's an iterative process that will, they'll come back with a report format, we'll take comments and they'll update the report format. I don't know how we kind of do that, but something like that.
Kind of like a living document.
Well, but also that, that will, instead of telling them all the things that we want to see on the report, tell them that we want to see enough information to be able to keep track of the history of the evolution of the project, of each project, in sufficient detail to be able to understand basically what's going on with it. I mean, not going to try to write stat with that, but just something like that. And then they'll come back with a report format that we may ask them to update each year as we figure out how to get dialed in what we're trying to keep track of it in our goals of oversight.
I'll raise my own hand. For me anyway, my gut is that backs off too far for me, and that it's not going to be helpful for them if we don't have a pretty explicit list of the things we want to see.
Okay.
I'd be more interested in making sure they have a very clear list of what we want to see in an easily accessible way, and get their feedback on dashboard versus report versus links.
Yeah.
You know, if we don't define the data we want to see, I'm worried that next year our much long awaited report will come out and we'll be like, oh gosh. Well, yeah, what about that? Or what about this?
And before I forget, I have something on my mind. Remember, you're not here from June to December.
Right.
So if you want occasional reports, you may get them, but you're not going to be here together to go over them. That might be Jai Talk or some other group that sees the reports, and they may be trusted to act on that in some way. But just kind of remembering that you would have maybe the time you're here, you maybe get 2 reports. If you ask for it every quarter, you know, maybe you get 2. So just kind of put that in your minds.
Okay.
So that's that's as written. You have a active current dashboard, project dashboard. And then the suggestion is to have a completed dashboard as well, which is separate from the current dashboard. This would be, again, on the language, it's a publicly accessible website that provides the history of all completed IT projects with a total completed cost of $500,000 or greater. It's similar. The dashboard includes the name of the agency and the department, the name of each project, the actual start date. And here might be where you have some different ideas, because you would show the original estimated start date and the actual start date, the original estimated completion date and actual date of completion, and then the original estimated cost and the actual cost of each project. This currently would not show the middle, the history, right? The history of the different changes in cost or changes as dates of completion, but maybe not as important as in the current active dashboard showing all that history. But so having 2 separate dashboards is the current language.
How far back in time were we saying we want these?
So, good question. In my session law that I previewed earlier, I thought about, well, how are we going to do this? So firstly, I said that they're required to have this operational on or before July 1. This is totally open for debate. I just
Where is this? Where is it?
the last page.
Oh, okay, here we go.
That can be discussed. The current projects dashboard shall show all IT projects that are in planning or operational phases, including those that started before the effective date. So that language can be massaged quite a bit. And this was kind of me thinking we need to define this. We need to define what current is. And that was my first attempt. And secondly, the completed project dashboard shall show all projects the agency has completed on or after a certain date. And you can have a date there if you want.
I think we should probably use and instead of X myself.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just kind of throw a wrench into this a little bit and rethink something. We're using the $500,000 cutoff. If I remember correctly, one of the things that was pointed out to us is there could be a number of projects that are tied together that may not hit that threshold. If we truly want oversight on these projects, we would want oversight over all projects, which is currently what's on that dashboard, which I find personally very helpful to see where even the small projects are and what their costs are.
Somebody had raised that question earlier.
Yeah, they can really add up to quite a bit. You know, and
Under 500,000.
yeah, and for instance, a lot of the ones that were being done on IE&E are little projects that they just do year by year. And if you look at the current list, it lists a bunch worth of the AHS and MIS that are all broken up into different projects. Those are probably big ones, but still, I think it's.
Sorry.
No,
That's a good
we
question.
meant to return to that, I think. So that's good. I can't remember what's the over under on that? How many are 500,000 and up and how many are?
Where did the 500,000 come from?
Well, I think that's what's in current statute.
Yeah.
It's a requirement for the independent review as well.
Yes.
That's, yeah. Is there?
Uh-huh.
Is there a reason we would not want to see all of them? See all of them? Let's just have see all of them.
Yeah,
Let's see if there's some proposal from you guys.
I don't see, let's
Why would-
put it in there. Yeah.
That won't conflict with statute to the point where it becomes cumbersome.
I don't think so, because we're rewriting the section of statute that has to do with the reporting, but we're not rewriting trigger for an independent review. So I don't think so.
So you, just to clarify, you want this reporting included on subdivision 4, which you were referencing of the annual report. You want that to be removed or lowered, the $500,000? Sorry, I wanted to show you all the number of projects that are under 500.
I just removed and just
See,
all projects.
did you say I, E, and E is in small batches?
That's the
Previous projects, what's smaller?
I think we have a question or comment from the deputy auditor.
Thank you. Just one, I'm trying to piece together the different sections here, but I think maybe the way to think about it is to distinguish between projects that are being managed by the EPMO division versus all things that ADS does, because I think the goal was to have a dashboard for the larger projects in general that are being managed by the EPMO. You wouldn't want to have ADS interpret this to be like a laptop replacement or, some de minimis activity. So it could be that you clarify that it's things within the EPMO's range of activities rather than all ADS things that they're doing, which could include like periodic cloud computing things that are probably a little outside of what motivates the community's interest.
And
Food for thought.
yeah, and remind me, somebody, what triggers the oversight of a project by EPMO?
Show you the statute.
I don't know the answer to that question, but what's on their current dashboard is all direct appropriations projects. And that could be that would prevent operational items from getting in this. Because they're direct appropriation.
So that could be a good question to ask the secretary to try to help narrow it to the projects that I think you really are interested in. I have it be the rinky dink things that wouldn't really help you.
So sort of how to focus or narrow down. And right now we're using 500K. And it could be versus EPMO oversight or jurisdiction, or it could be direct appropriation, or those two options.
The current dashboard is, all the projects there are direct appropriation. Their dashboard. Because I think they thought that's what you would want to see.
Okay. I think that's a question for ADS.
Another question that triggers for me is, do we want to start building a fund to be able to do some of these projects that would not be an appropriation each? So it might not be an appropriations, a direct appropriation per project from the general fund, but it might be from whatever this sort of capital IT fund might be. If there was to, I know we don't have one, but maybe we should, because we're spending over $700 million on this.
We have the modernization fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
The ADS request appropriations too.
right, which might become, it seems like it might be a good idea to use that to become a capital IT fund. Sort of.
So,
That has 6 projects in it, I think.
right. So I think I would reply that is a great conversation for any future bill that we move after we've seen all the work that JFO and Ledge Council
Sure.
are working on for us. I mean, when that's ready, we'll have all that information presented to us and to the Senate. And I think that's gonna help guide our work on the funding.
That's it, I see it.
Yeah,
A
it
separate
seems,
and big left.
it seems
Yeah.
like an initiative under transparency. It might be something really in line with the ADS strategic plan too. Because their goal is to really improve reporting, public reporting,
Mhm.
and this would certainly align with that.
Yeah. Okay,
Well, I've reached the end of the language for this bill. So
okay, effective date
July 1.
and, what do we do with completed on or after X? Did we settle X? Did we solve for
Yeah,
X?
We're gonna call it M now.
And this is kind of me giving you an idea of if you want to even do this, you don't have to do this, but I think it might be helpful for you and for ADS to kind of know what you're expecting of their reporting.
So how far back? Okay, Rep. Sebeli, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, well, now I have two. So one is on line 9. I think that's produce, not product.
Yes.
Oh,
And then I wonder if the deputy auditor has a suggestion on that X date,
On which day?
that X, or how we should define that.
How
So
how far
the
back
project staff
we go.
or, yeah, how far back should we go?
For a database, for a list line.
This is the looking back.
Yes.
yeah.
Completed projects.
Also, while the deputy auditor thinks about it, we do not want to have to revise this every year to lop off the last year. So it should be within the past X. I think it should say something like within the past 5 years so that the language just keeps moving forward. And if we pick 2015, we don't have to keep.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
I think if you might find that ADS has a list of all the projects they've completed, so just doing all the projects since their inception might not actually be a heavy lift. If they tell you it is gonna be like a really burdensome thing, that maybe the last 3 years,
And then there's
just to keep it tight. But it could be that they've got it already in like a master inventory of projects that have been under their purview, so.
Rep. Sadler?
Just my suggestion. The more we put in there, the more it's gonna muddy the waters. So if we keep that time frame at the end shorter, I think we're gonna be better off and it'll be more useful document.
Especially because we're talking about completed projects.
Right.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So I wonder about the integrated eligibility and projects associated with that. Just seems like a project that never ends.
Right. So that would be on the
It's the
active
project that never
dashboard.
ends. But do we want to see, like,
Are you talking about the 500,000?
no, I'm talking about.
But
It won't.
it won't be on this dashboard, it'll be on
But
the other
aspects of
dashboard.
it have.
I have a suggestion. Perhaps, when you do drop off the year from the dashboard, you have a requirement that they archive each year as they remove it. So then the history could be there and you could link it. It might be as simple as just a spreadsheet, but at least you have access to it.
That makes.
I have another question about having sort of mini projects within a larger project. Is there some way of? Well, first of all, we can have it for all projects, but I'm just thinking, is there a grouping of projects? So you mentioned that, Lisa, that several IE&E projects were sort of discrete projects that were completed along the way, but they're all within the umbrella of IE&E. So is there a way of asking to have the umbrella, have projects shown under the umbrella somehow? I mean, I'm not using the right word because I
I know
don't
what
know
you're
what they
saying.
are.
You're saying, kind of a umbrella project. code.
Yeah, Something like
that
that.
you could have, that could be, I mean, you can do anything like that because it's just another field. It's just a matter of how much you want to put into it. And I really like the idea about having the data accessible via a spreadsheet like a download, because then you can do all sorts of things like that
Right, right, true.
that are, it's just a matter of how complicated you want to make it.
Well,
How many
I-
fields to add.
No, I want the data, rather the dashboard to be far simpler than what we're talking about here. And we'll get into it with ADS when they come back, but, I think the dashboard should be simple and the link to the report should be where the detail is. But the dashboard still should have useful information about, basically, how we doing, you know?
So Rick, unresolved questions?
No, I think I kind of understand what Kennedy wants, and a lot of it depends on what ADS says they can do, or maybe what's feasible. I think what Brett Campbell just said about, having, because the dashboard they're doing that on their own. There's no statutory requirement to do that. You could have that dashboard cleaned up and say, we just want this. We don't need a bunch of green dots or whatever you want to do. You can say that. And then you can say, we want spreadsheets that are downloadable on the website, that aren't part of the dashboard. They're separate reports. You don't call it reports, but you have that. Then the third piece is the annual report, where you have the original, the list of the history of the changes of the dates and the amounts have changed. So I think maybe you're looking at the 3-piece thing here, which is manageable. But am I reading that wrong?
Well, this is just for me, maybe a 2-piece thing. I just simply because I keep coming back to the testimony that they provided that their current dashboard is an accurate reflection of their project management, their specific project management process that they use. And so, based on the waterfall and so my thought on that is great. That's not the dashboard we want. So let's not have that, put it away somewhere or leave it up on your website, but you don't need to tinker with it on our behalf. Here's what we want to see in whatever is we want to see more detail in the report. We want to see an easily uploadable and changeable dashboard that meets our needs. And so I'm not seeing a 3-part thing. I'd be curious to hear from ADS on that, but I thought we heard that, I'm sort of feeling like, let's leave their current dashboard alone for them if it's working for them as project managers, and let's have them build what we want in a simple format.
And personally, I don't know about a downloadable spreadsheet. Probably everybody in this room can download the spreadsheet and sort it and filter it and all that, but I'm not sure that that's sort of a common skill, out in the public. So I don't know how useful a downloadable spreadsheet is for a public facing website. Personally.
Can't get much simple. I don't know. I mean, maybe we can get their opinion on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm also thinking about the builder registry that we've been trying to get going, we have residential builders registers so the public can find them, and the only way they can really sort information about them is to download a spreadsheet. There's no sort of filtering capability on the website. You have to download a spreadsheet,
I see.
which just seems too difficult for most people.
All right.
Consumers.
Let's ask them about that. Yeah.
Would you like me to sit with ADS and go over what we're coming up with and really assess what they can and can't do now? Because it could be iterative. Because I was able to put together quite a bit just from the data that's in the annual report going back multiple years.
Yeah.
So that way I can assess how they're
Sure. Maybe, should we take a look at what you're tinkering with? Or did you type in info by hand and there might be some,
I did it just so you could see what the format would look like, but
Okay.
it's based on data, so it's not something I want out there
that,
because.
yeah, no, especially if it's, if
Yeah.
anything in there might be a typo or something.
Exactly.
Definitely. Okay. What do folks think about that? Okay. And then we could also share with them Rick's revised draft.
I have one more question.
Uh-huh.
Maybe, this first part, this annual report, and the committee might be more on the same page when it comes to that. Is there anything else in the annual report? Do you definitely want a history of the changes in cost and completion dates? I see a lot of nodding.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so I'll add that to this subdivision 4 here. Do you want to leave it at $500,000?
I don't think we know yet.
Okay.
Or are we taking it out? Yeah,
Well, actually, there was discussion about that, right? So there was a suggestion.
we were gonna
About
add,
appropriations.
Yeah.
yeah, I had written down 500K versus direct appropriation versus the FMO process. So I think we want to flag that to get their thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah,
So just because ADS has their fund, I think Scott alluded to that they have a fund that they,
The modernization. fund.
yes.
Yeah.
Um,
But there are only 6 projects in that fund right now.
right, but that is a direct appropriation for that fund, so that would kind of fit in, correct?
I think we're seeding that this year, or they're asking for
Yeah.
seed that fund. Isn't that the $15 million?
There's
There's something
$82
else.
million in the fund right
80,
now.
okay, yeah. Yeah, so that's right.
Oh, this is last year, 2020.
Right, I think, yeah, so there's money in that fund, I guess from previous appropriations, right?
For projects,
For
for projects,
For,
for existing projects.
for existing
It's been
projects.
earmarked, yeah.
That was a general fund appropriation in previous years. Is that right?
I don't know that funding's.
Not in the last few years.
No,
I'm
not
not sure before that, I don't know.
And actually, we might have used one-time money also, federal money.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Anyway,
That's JFO question. JFO would love to
yeah,
answer that question.
okay, but anyway, that gets at the question of whether it's an appropriation or, well, I guess it was came from the feds, it would still be in the big bill, it would still be an appropriation.
Okay. I have some things to change for the next draft, but I think go ahead and send the secretary of ADS this draft.
I already did.
Okay.
I sent it to her, yeah. And I'm sure they'll be able to just watch our conversation. And then when you have a second draft, Rick, what do you think your time, I'm looking at our schedule, what is? Okay, so Lisa, you're gonna reach out to Secretary Riley Hughes, right? And Rick, you're gonna do another draft.
You have it coming in tomorrow?
Yeah, you're coming in tomorrow at 10:30.
Yeah, I can have something. I mean, it's gonna be based on what I just said.
Great.
You know,
It's warned for a possible vote or not. That's a little
Yeah.
unlikely, but it's good to always just warn. The worst case scenario is that you vote without having it warned. So once you feel like you're even moving towards something, you just warn it for a vote on your agenda. I think it's unlikely that we'll. Highly unlikely. But let's keep it warned. Okay.
any changes to the dashboard language, just kind of leave that as is. Until we know more about what.
That's what I feel like.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for me.
All right. Rick, thank you
I'll
so
see you
much.
tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.